Notice he continues, it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. We need to come and do this, he says. It's a memorial that we're doing. But take a look at the irony now. Follow it, Miss Udine. But in a larger sense, we can't do it. We cannot dedicate. Notice the threes. We cannot consecrate. We cannot hollow this ground. Notice what he says. It's quite interesting. He says, we really need to come together to this field and to give a memorial, but we really can't do it. Why can't we do it? Because you can't explain 10 New Orleans dead in 3 days. They ain't no words to explain that. Notice what he says. The brave men living and dead. Notice he doesn't say the brave Union troops living and dead. He doesn't say that. Even though the South seceded, Lincoln always felt himself the president of the South, even though they refused to consider him their president. The brave men, living and dead, who struggle here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The irony of all ironies, look at the next line. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it will never forget what they did here. Until this morning, I don't mean to insult, until this morning, you didn't have a clue about 10 New Orleans in 3 days. That's what the men did. But all of you had heard of 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth blah, 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 blah. Note the irony. Lincoln says, nobody's going to remember what we say here. Nobody will ever forget what they did here. It's the exact opposite. America long ago forgot 10 New Orleans in 3 days. Interesting. He continues, it is for us. What are you going to do now? Now we're going forward into the future. It is for us the living, rather, read it with me, to be dedicated, he likes that word here, to the unfinished work that they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. Let's put it in our notes this way. Lincoln says it this way. It is a way to encapsulate the Gettysburg Address. We ain't done. We're not done. We're not done. There is more work left to do. Notice the brilliance of this observation, Ms. Cottrell. If we quit, 10 New Orleans in 3 days all died for nothing. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. 10 New Orleans in 3 days, what's the point? I can't give you an answer, but I know we can't quit, because if we quit, it's all for nothing. That's brilliant. The way he finishes. It's rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task, that's what he calls it, remaining before us. Notice the dashes. That from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. Notice the series of parenthetical phrases using the word that. Do you see it? That. Notice he says, we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. What does in vain mean? If you die in vain for nothing, yeah. That this nation, Lincoln was a theist, under God. He's using the very language of Jefferson. We hold the truth to be self-evident. All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That under God shall have a, notice he began with birth. He finishes with birth. I'm telling you, this is a brilliant little speech. Have a new birth of freedom. And that, he uses a very Jeffersonian word. People today who speak against the government don't understand Lincoln. That government of the people, that's pure Jefferson, remember? By the people, that's pure Jefferson. For the people, that's pure Jefferson. For your notes, write it down. Lincoln brilliantly begins with Jefferson and ends with Jefferson. For Lincoln, it's all about Jefferson's vision. It's all about the vision of the Declaration. We might be done. Do you see it? Might not perish. Can I say this out loud as a final comment? And I hope you hear it. Maybe put it in your notes. We have a tendency to assume that this country always survives. Lincoln did not share that view. He believed a nation struggles through tests, and its people must continue to fight to hold freedom. That's Lincoln's view. He was concerned that it was possible America would go away. But we're not even 100 years old. I'm going to now blow your mind for one more time. Go in your hymnals to page 1183. Hurry. Trust me, you're going to want to see this. 1183, go there now. I want you to look at this image. Okay? On 1183. It's one of the most famous ones. 1183. 1183. All right? This is one of the most famous images. And if somebody hasn't done it for you, I'm going to let you write in your book. And right next to that image, I want you to put a date. That date is May 23, 1963. Go ahead, write it in your book if somebody hasn't already done it for you. May 23, 1963. A group of young people walked into a restaurant that said on the door, "For whites only." They sat down and ordered a burger. Policemen stood outside the door to make sure that what was about to happen would happen. And a group of young white men walked into that restaurant and began to spit huge white loogies on the heads of those people sitting there. Then dump stuff on top of them. And then a few minutes later, punch in the side of the face one of them before all three of them would be dragged out of that restaurant. You wrote the date down. Why did I have you write the date down? That's where we started our lecture. November 1863. The Gettysburg Address was spoken 100 years almost to the day. And we were still fighting this war of freedom and equality. Do some quick mathematics on your own notes. From May of 1963, how many years later were you born? Go ahead, blow your own mind. How many years later were you born? You can do the quick mathematics. It didn't take that long. Right? Hello? Can I say this now? Hello? Stay with me. Don't put away anything yet. Hello? Can you understand why the election to the presidency of an African American was such a big deal to one or two Americans in this country? I'm not saying anything about your politics. You can think whatever you want on that count. I'm asking you a simple question. Can you at all understand why one or two Americans looking at history, guys, here's the date, you wrote it down, 1963. We're still fighting for the rights of African Americans to even eat in the same restaurant after 10 New Orleans die in 3 days of a 4-year war to free slaves. Amazing, yes? Thank you. You've been a kind audience. Mr. Carr, an observation. Go ahead.